Hey, everyone. So, Graham is on his way.
I'm home alone with Nilde, so if you just see me running away, it's because she woke up.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. So this is the 20th of January APAC timed Kubernetes demo. Is there anything anyone wants to demo? No? Okay. Alessio could demo his latest production deployment. You demoing your latest production deployment, Alessio? Awesome. So let us talk briefly about dev. So this might be slightly different. I've just dropped in there. I'm going to just hijack the agenda slightly and give a small update. So I've just heard just a few minutes ago that distribution are willing longer term to take ownership of the dev machine, which makes sense, right? So what the next steps will be is Balu is available to do a short-term migration, so lift and shift. And so the main thing will be for us to figure out like when we want to do this and work with Balu on some steps to do that. So I suggest we like Henry, your suggestion, like let's get a issue presumably in the distribution tracker. We can use the Slack channel, but let's coordinate like how we want to do this, when we want to do this, and basically figure out like when it will be safe for us to take dev offline for a bit to do this, and like what would break. Like the scaling is obviously the big risk for this one, right? Rust devs offline.
This is interesting. So that would mean that the distribution team takes ownership of the whole instance and everything.
Well, it would be on GCP. So yeah, however they want to set that up, so they have full ownership. Yeah.
Should we be building the new machine with Chef and things like that then? Like, it sounds like if they just want to take ownership of it, we should just get it running, not even attached to our Chef infrastructure. Do we need to build it in our own Terraform, or do we just build it manually?
We need to do anything. So I think that's the thing. Like, let's figure out with distribution how much they can do. But yeah, let's get it set up so that they can own the entire thing. And it's not linked to our stuff, so they don't have to have a dependency on infra for this stuff.
I only have one concern here because this machine is needed for our production loads, because we need it for scaling up our Kubernetes clusters, and we need to have the same kind of observability into it like we have for the rest of our infrastructure. Because if anything with scaling on pulling images and stuff like that is failing during a production incident, we need to be able to see this, that this is coming from this machine and what's going on there, right? To be able to identify that. If it becomes a kind of blind spot for infrastructure, that would be not really great. So we should make sure that we work together with them to integrate with our monitoring. And for that, maybe the question of if we should follow the same kind of Terraform and Chef structure for setting it up like we do for our other infrastructure maybe would be helpful.
Yeah, so, happy to discuss that with them. I mean, I think like let's aim for the short term, let's get it better than dev, right? We don't have anything at the moment. So I think it doesn't matter too much what we have initially. But yeah, sure. Let's figure out with Balu how this makes sense to look like.
Will they be on call?
I don't know.
So there's two parts to this then. I'm going to try and not take things too far off in the conversation off where we're focusing on here. I agree with Henry's assessment on dev registry and image pulling. Like, that is a serious concern to me, whether it's in GCP or not. I still think there's more work a side effort here that we need to circle back and do something better about that. I just don't like that whole VM being the single point where we pull our images from. Whether we like, there's some like a proxy we set up. I've talked before about GCP offers like Docker registry image, whether we like push to that as well and like sync from that. I just think, especially now, if it sounds like we're walking away a little bit from management of it, I think it would make sense for us, not right now, but definitely almost immediately after, to have a conversation about how do we make our Docker pools for scaling more reliable. I just don't think it's not fair for dev to be that single one VM where everything is pulled from. I just don't think it's sensible. Even if it's just like a proxy or something, so that, you know, the proxy stores, because they're just mostly blobs, right? Or something like that.
Oh, I'm muted. So they're not on that machine. I mean, the registry is just a binary which can run everywhere and it reads from object storage. So it's just, if you move it to Kubernetes, that you can run thousands of pods, and
yeah, so that's,
there goes the load.
That's definitely, I would not be moving it to Kubernetes if we're not owning it. Like I don't know. I guess that's kind of distribution's prerogative, right? Like it's up to them to make that choice. But I do think we need.
I think we should discuss this with them and figure out like what the short term is. Let's solve the immediate dev problems, and then longer term, like what do we need to have in place so that they can own this, we can handle incidents, and it all scales, right?
So
what I like about this approach is that the main use of the machine is really for distribution, right? Because they run most of the jobs, they tune them, and they know how they are working. And also we saw that they produced this problem by having massive parallel jobs, pulling and pushing a lot of stuff to the single machine, which is just overloading it. So if they are in control of how they do this and also see the pain of it, I think that would improve, that we get things fixed quickly from that. So I think it's a good idea to have them own this in this way. Yeah.
So then if we're thinking about concrete steps now, it sounds to me like in an ideal situation, what we would do is we would turn off the VM in Azure. We would take the actual VHD disk images, somehow transfer them to GCP, somehow spin up a VM with those disk images attached. And we might have to, I mean, there might be a little bit more work than that, but in theory, right, like that would be the ideal solution, is just literally taking those disk images, pulling them across and putting them into a new VM, and it would just quote unquote magically work. I know it's probably not that simple. So I guess the question is, does anyone have any ideas if that's possible? Or should we do something like we're just going to async the data direct, like what you did for when you migrated the disks? Do we just spin up a whole new VM and we just async the data across instead? I'm not knowledgeable enough about like what options we have for migrating between clouds. I spent some time today looking at GCP. So a lot of the cloud providers have their own migrate from one cloud to another tool, and they're very invested in those tools because it's money, right? Like you say, oh, we're stuck on Azure, you know, we can't give you money and come to GCP, and they're like, no, just use this tool and it'll transfer all the VMs across. You know, it's very important to them. I had a look at the tool. It seemed like it was okay, but it needed like, you had to set up a VPN to Azure. You had to give the migration tooling in Azure like security credentials, obviously, so it could talk to the APIs to turn off the machine. And it looked like it would be a possibility, but it looked like a lot of hassle, which once again, why I'm kind of throwing open the conversation here. Because if that ship machine is under Chef as well, like in theory, we bring up a new VM that looks like what the data we have in Azure. Chef will configure it. The data itself's missing. And then we should just have to async var opt GitLab, right?
Yeah, we have to sync stuff from the OS disk also, because we install in opt, like in opt GitLab, which is not on the data disk. So the installation itself is in opt GitLab, while the data is in var opt GitLab. So so this needs to be done.
Can't we just install the package? Like, wouldn't that bring the opt data back,
yeah,
or just the package?
So.
Yeah.
I think because we have this in Chef, and Chef is configuring Omnibus, I think using Chef is a good idea in general, and also to not have this kind of problem, right? If we delete this machine by accident, then how can we rebuild it, right? If we have Terraform and Chef, then we can do that. If not, then it's, I don't know, can be more problematic. But this is a question that also distribution needs to answer. And for the transfer of the images, I don't know how good that would work. I just think that, we have these kind of scripts always and GCP, which is setting up metadata and stuff like that. And I wonder if just taking the image from Azure would work as great. So maybe rsync would be the better solution, but not an expert in this, never did it.
Yeah, I actually agree. Simply, I was thinking about it as well. Like there could just be a missing kernel driver for like the virtual network that they, card that they use. Like it is the riskier option. So in theory, then, if I'm understanding correctly, what we can do now and what we can't do now is we could possibly get the new VM up and running now.
Yeah.
We could possibly let Chef run on it. It would try and start the GitLab services on that box. I assume they would fail because they're missing the data, right? That'll be empty or what have you. We'd have to then turn Chef off, stop all the services, and now we more or less could start running rsync even while the old dev.gitlab.org is being used, just like rsync a bulk of the data, right? So,
yes.
And then we would do that thing where we're turning dev off, we do a final rsync, then we turn on start the services in the GCP VM, see if anything's broken. If not, then we just shut down that old VM completely, update the DNS, and we're done. Like, hopefully.
Yeah, I think mostly, I mean, we need to get the accounts right and stuff like that in GCP and see if we move registry stuff from S3 over to GCP maybe, but maybe this can be done later.
I think that's definitely a kind of a let's do that later, because man, I'm not even sure how we would do that, how you would sync between S3 and GCP.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, but I think getting it up with Terraform and Chef, then you have a foundation to build on, and then syncing the data with rsync sounds easiest, I think, and we can repeat this if it fails and so on.
And we could do a bulk of the data transfer ahead of time as well, which I think is good, because
yes,
even no matter however we got to copy that data, we're copying it over the internet, and although the links are fast, there's a lot of data there, so it's not going to be.
Yeah, but I have some experience now with syncing to the other disks on the instance itself, totally. And I know that if we exclude some of the stuff that never changes after the initial sync, we take around 10 minutes to sync again. So it should be not a too long downtime to do the final sync, I think.
Awesome. So in terms of like next steps, so shall we say that we well, I suppose, do we need to do this over a weekend?
Not necessarily. I mean, the problem is while it's down, we can't scale up nodes, probably.
Okay, yeah.
We can't deploy as well.
Yeah, deploy as well. But if the downtime
right?
is not too long, we can risk to do it in
Yeah.
between some deployments. But we need to do some test runs. Yeah.
Yeah, that scaling issue. Yeah, that's a really big problem. Like, because we scale off that, we can do something. Could we do something silly like temporarily increase our pod counts to like very high so that we're basically over provisioned for temporarily?
Yeah.
Then kind of do the work on dev, and unless I don't know, someone DDoSes us or something that they have to scale up massively, just hope that by preemptively scaling we absorb any extra capacity.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Or we change all of our Kubernetes deployments with an SED script to, instead of going to dev, to go to ops or something to pull images.
Are we building? Do we have a mirror from security to ops?
I'm not sure. No, not to ops, but maybe to security, right? Then we could pull from security, I guess.
I mean, you are depending on, it's GitLab.com depending on GitLab.com, but I guess for a small amount of time, we wouldn't leave it like that permanently, right? I guess it's good enough, just temporarily.
I think we are not publishing on registry on those instances.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I remember Balu point, because someone was saying we are building this on canonical, on security, then on dev. Sounds like a waste of time, space, whatever. And I think Balu was pointing out that yes, we build to check that it's building, but we don't publish.
Okay.
Then can we point to registry.gitlab.com? Like, do we just point to production registry and scale off that as a
So
While
in
the
terms of like
migration-
next
Smelters you can't
steps,
deploy them. That's the other
um,
problem, right? So
So in terms of like not needing to figure all this stuff out, but in terms of kind of timelines of when we would want to kind of ask Balu. So Balu has got sort of 1 to 2 days to help us. So how about Henry on Monday, when you're out of release management, you set up a plan, get like an issue somewhere on Epic with what the plan for how this might look. And then we can work with like get input from other people, like Jav will have some ideas. We can ask Balu about this stuff as well, and then figure out a timeline of what we need to do.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, I can start with that issue right this week if I find time, so we can async already get some input into it, and then I think we should have a sync session maybe with Balu to talk about things.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and do that?
Yeah,
because he's mostly in your time zone, right? So
yeah,
awesome. And then like use the Slack channel to keep everyone updated so people can follow along. But I think it would be a good thing to kind of figure out quite soon how long we think the disruption would be and how we would schedule this so that we know, are we able to do it in the morning? Do we have to do it at a weekend? Could we do it over APAC? Like what's going to be the safe time and how long would we have to take dev out for? And then once we know that, we can schedule.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's clarify the details and the timeline and then see how we can get this started. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
We should also not forget to change the DNS TTL. Otherwise, we are kind of stuck with the timeout until it's. So when we start migrating, it's 5 minutes, I think, right now. So it's not a big deal, but we should go down to 30 seconds for the time of the migration so that we can recover as soon as we are ready.
We just had an incident where we needed to change the DNS entry and it didn't take too long. So it's not too bad right now.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, dev is 5 minutes. I checked now. So it's as a 5 minute TTL. So it just kind of extend the recovery window to 5 minutes.
Cool. Okay, great. Graham, you have next one.
Oh yeah, it's a very quick note. It's just interesting. I see that there's a new working group, or they're a pretty old working group within the Kubernetes SIGs and the Kubernetes community, talking about what they trying to define what GitOps is, and I just found that very interesting. And seeing as this the k8s migration demo meeting, I thought I'd pass it along for general perusal if people are interested. It also kind of resonated with me a little bit of thinking about like next steps for what we're trying to do in terms of deployments and some of the Kubernetes deployment, the k8s workloads, all of that stuff that we have now. But it was a very interesting kind of, it's very short page, like they're still just kind of bringing things together, but it was interesting that they actually are trying to articulate and define it. What was most interesting I found was one statement of, I think it was someone on Reddit kind of in the discussion about GitOps was saying something like, if you have to, every time you bring up a new production cluster, if you have to run one or more CI jobs, then I would argue that you're not doing GitOps or you're not doing it as well as you could, which I found very fascinating because that's one of the problems we have on our radar at the moment is it's very hard to bring up new production clusters. So I don't know, very interesting to think about, but it's one of the big things. The big things that they pull as one of the main pillars that we don't do at the moment is not CIOps, is pulling. Like you run an agent in the cluster that pulls and reconciles. So yeah, you spin up any new clusters, they pull from your public Git repo. You don't have to have a CI job that fires off to talk to these clusters. And there's pros and cons to both approaches, absolutely for sure. But yeah, I can see now that as they start to articulate more of that, it's a very interesting proposition. And could be opportunities for us in the future to change things, especially if we think we're going to start going more multi-environment and more perhaps multi-cluster per environment or whatever. There's certainly attractions there.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing that. It could also be a good one for us to get involved in if anyone has a particular interest in, trying to sort of move this stuff forwards. Awesome. I had a question about GKE upgrades. So what's that kind of status and what do we need to do next?
So it's a little bit funny. I discovered today, so I just was looking, just poking to make sure that I every few weeks I kind of poke to make sure the upgrades keep going. And I noticed that they haven't run at all since like December last year. And tried to reach out why. I thought maybe like we had some exclusion periods for the PCL, but I thought maybe they were like configured wrong and we had to remove them. No, it just turns out after talking to Google that Google does their own PCL where they just turn off auto upgrades for you without telling you in the background. And they said that that finished January 3rd or something. And the theory is now that I think they've got such a backlog, like, you know, it's just whenever it'll happen. Because there's no, you set a maintenance window, but there's no guarantee that they will do any upgrades, right? It's really just Google's just like, we will try and do it, you know, over the coming weeks. They send a note out saying clusters that are set to auto upgrade will be upgraded to this version, but there's certainly no solid time frame. So it's not like it's just like, yeah, they notice that they know that there's a backlog and our clusters will be upgraded whenever. So I'm kind of like, we can just wait. We can click a button and like force the upgrade kind of thing. I don't really know what to do. It's not too bad at the moment. If it gets halfway through February, because they are still trying to talk about March is when we got the 122 upgrade, we'll probably get promoted to the auto upgrade channel. So we need to just make sure we do the due diligence on the API deprecations for that. So I don't want it to be like we're still sitting on 120 when there's 122 right out there. So I don't want to leave it last too long. I'm happy personally, unless anyone's got any better ideas or they particularly do want to jump in and start upgrading things. I'm happy to just see if over the next 2 or 3 weeks, whether the auto upgrades kick back in and we get upgraded. But if anyone else has any thoughts, all that is.
It's funny because I thought exactly that maybe they just have their own holiday maintenance or something like that if nothing is happening. So they have a smooth start to the year like we do. And also the other issue for the changed monitoring IP addresses sounded like they will need some time to get the fix deployed through GKE. So it sounds like they really have some kind of backlog to get things through and needs more time for everything. So maybe they are just overloaded with a lot of things. And for auto upgrades, yeah, I think we should maybe wait. But if you are curious if anything breaks, we could also just push a button somewhere in staging, right, and to see if we see issues. But waiting if something is happening will tell us that auto upgrades are working again. So let's wait. And the maintenance policy, anyways, over in gstaging and gprod that we have set. So we should upgrade as soon as it works again.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, the maintenance exclusion, I think, was a red herring. I just assumed that was, I didn't even occur to me that Google themselves would be stopping them. So I just thought it was a problem on our side. But yeah, no, I agree. I think if we get through like halfway through February, we should at least force staging just so we're like testing that and what have you. But yeah, I don't think I agree. I don't think we need to rush into it right now, but it's certainly like, and unfortunately this is we need to keep an eye on this manually at the moment because we have no automation or monitoring around it.
How about we put this as a check for 14703, which is the disruptive upgrade. So there's a squad has been assigned to work on that from reliability. They'll be starting on the 1st of February. So how about we just add a comment on there and say like, you know, like, before, like, you know, put a by, you know, end of Feb or whatever, like, let's make sure that this has auto upgraded, and if not, like, let's make a plan to manually trigger it.
Where do you want to put this? I didn't fully understand this.
As a comment for the team who are going to pick up the disruptive upgrade. So on 1.4, so to Graham's comment that we don't want to not have run this auto upgrade before we get to the 1.22 upgrade. So we could add it on the project, prepare for that 1.22 upgrade, to add a comment that by whatever date, mid-Feb, end of Feb, we make sure we've definitely had an upgrade. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Does it sound like a reasonable idea? Like, I guess I'm just trying to group, like, is there a way we could group this stuff together so we don't kind of have to maintain two kind of upgrade projects?
I was more thinking of maybe we set a reminder like a due date to this issue that we have open, that we check in, I don't know, 2 weeks if something changed, so we don't forget about it.
Yeah, we can do that as well. I guess is there a, like, I suppose the change we're hoping to move to in Q1 is to get reliability more involved in kind of understanding how these things work and sort of running them, which is kind of the point of the having reliability work with us on the disruptive one. So just wondering, like, is there any benefit to also looping this stuff together so they have that visibility as well? But otherwise, yeah, if you want to put a due date, and if it has got a due date though, I'd also like to know who's going to check, because otherwise we get a bit of bystander effect. So if it's got a due date, please have an assigned person as well.
Yeah, then we need to assign somebody to the issue. I can assign myself.
Cool. Okay, great. I'm back. Chris is back. Cool. Is there anything else that we need to go through, or anyone would like to go through today? No? Okay. Awesome. Well, I hope you'll have a great rest of your day. Thanks very much for the discussions. Yeah, we look forward to progress on dev in the next few days. Take care, everyone. Bye.